Hello everyone, I am Tacit, and today we're going to be doing an overview of version 7.3 of Gems of War. Of course, this update came out the other night, and it was primarily a PvP rework, doing a bunch of things to it, kind of just changing how the overall layout of it works, and this will likely affect other things going into the future, as well as Guild War, future PvP reworks, and stuff like that. As we can see, there's even buttons here that we can't end up clicking, like alliances. But anyways, kind of just wanted to briefly go over some of the changes. There's basically three main categories: PvP, a new effect, and the new Celestial Dragons. So of course, let's start with the absolute biggest one, and that's being PvP. You can now access the new PvP system by making sure you're on the correct of these little tabs. Then click over to PvP and you'll be brought to a new map. To get off that map, you simply just click back on Crystara, and to get back, of course, is back onto PvP. There are multiple things here. The most noteworthy one is probably how the new currency system works. There are three of them, well, technically two right now. Well, I guess technically three if you count VP, with a fourth one coming later. There are three things here. VP, your silver marks, your gold marks, and probably something like platinum marks or something in the future. But anyways, we have these three for now. So the first one, VP. This essentially just replaces that point system, like the 1,900 and every other thing that we had with it for the previous system. You just do a fight, you earn VP for it. You can do a bunch of various goals in order to get slightly more VP, but simply just fighting battles that have a bit more VP on it just naturally is going to give you a ton. You could also choose to do this in easier locations. For example, every single location has a different restriction. The Central Spire is basically the PvP that you've known and loved, or maybe not loved, but you've known over the last many, many years. It's been the same one since like, what, 2016 or so? So it's been going for quite a while, but it's basically unchanged. You just get to use whatever there against whatever. Then we have our next ring going around. This ring ends up having just color restrictions. So this is kind of like Guild War, but not exactly. Your team would be restricted pretty similarly, but the enemy's team would also have to be the pure color, meaning you can get away with things that you normally wouldn't have been able to in the past, like Book, as well as Grey King and other things that are really good against a specific team of all the same color. Aside from that, it is worth noting that you can take these for extra points. So whenever you see one of these little orange ones, you can actually earn these little silver marks. As you can see here, if we go do 5 battles here, we'll get 10. We do it in the middle ring, we'll end up getting 15. And since we can't have 3 at once, can't really show in the outer ring, but if you take any from the outer ring, which are restricted either to kingdom or troop type bonuses, like for example over here, we actually have 2 of both these this time around. Sun-Christened Strix, which are, of course, similar restrictions, but still different. One is the kingdom, one is the type. And very similar over here, too, Stormheim and Giant. Of course, the troop type having a bit more of a wider range compared to the kingdom. However, there are some pretty good kingdoms that do have synergy within themselves. And doing it from that point will end up giving you 20 of these new silver marks whenever you do 5 fights here. And these end up rotating just like they do in the overworld. And whenever you take it from one, it'll move over to another. They currently default if you're level 1000 plus at 10, 15, 20. With 20 being the outer ring, 15 being the middle, and the 10 being the smallest one there. However, this does end up scaling with your league. So if you're all the way up at the highest possible league, it would actually be 5 higher than that, meaning that the middle would end up being 15 by the end of it all. The second ring right over here would end up being 20, and the very outer ring would end up being 25 as far as those silver marks. You can also earn marks through other various things, like this VP point. So every single time you do a fight, you will earn VP. And this basically replaces quite one-to-one the 1,900 system that we had before. But instead of getting like 14 or 15 rewards, you actually end up getting yourself a full 20. It does take a little bit longer. I would say on average, whatever you were taking to get done with 1.9k, this would probably take about 50% longer. The main reason for this is you currently can't lose VP. It gets reset every week, but it doesn't get you can't lose it. Like if you lose a battle, you don't lose VP. If you lose a defend fight, you don't lose VP like you did before. So 6,500 might sound like a lot more, but with all the extra bonuses that help you get VP, as well as the fact that you just don't lose it, it's not as high as it seems. And doing so gives you a new booster. We, of course, have gold and soul boosters here. For the most part, this isn't really going to be that useful compared to XP boosters, but can still help out. They're really annoying how they currently are, though, because if you click claim all or, collect, let's say you have like 300 points right now, and you click collect all because you want like your 200 silvers, it will currently trigger both a gold bonus and a soul bonus simultaneously. So for you to effectively use every single one of these 8 boosters, a full hour for gold and a full hour for souls every week, you would have to do it by doing a PvP fight, then doing this, then doing like 2 more PvP fights, then do that for 15 minutes, then do a few more, and then do that for 15 minutes. It's really clunky with how it currently is. Hopefully this will be tweaked in the future, as currently I feel like the soul and gold boosters are essentially non-existent. as you'd have to claim them all at once, and it's just not efficient to try to farm both gold and soul simultaneously. You can with a few troops within the game, however, it's not really worthwhile compared to just winning quicker. However, the most noteworthy things that we have here, or I should say the most noteworthy thing that isn't here anymore, you don't get 46 glory keys every single week anymore. That wasn't really that big a deal. Like, you got like a few hundred glory and like 46 glory keys. However, that's been replaced with this new mark system. You can end up getting 100 silver marks and 80 gold marks. And for whatever reason, when you end up hitting the highest part there, you actually get 1,000 more VP, which is actually relevant for something. So if we go over to the shop, over to the new PvP shop, you will see a billion menus here. But we'll just start clicking on each of these one by one. Premium, you can basically ignore both of these. However, if you are going to be buying gold marks, this is the current best way to do it. If I did the math right, I believe it's about $4.70 per deed book. So if you did want to spend money in the game and you wanted to progress that forward a little bit quicker, that is something you could do. I'm personally not. But you could pretty much just completely ignore the other one. It is way overpriced for what it is. Even this one, I feel, might be a little bit overpriced, but it really depends how much you value a deed book, as we'll get to in a moment. Speaking of things you can completely ignore, never buy a talisman. They are completely pointless. They are extremely overpriced for what they do. They only give you 5. Even if they were 50, I'm not sure if I would buy them for these prices. Auto just isn't really much of a need. Unless you're like really trying to get like 100% win rate or something, and even then, I don't know, there's not many situations where you'd want it. The most useful one, of course, due to how cheap it is, would be the curse one. But even then, for only 5, you're spending 5 silver thingies. The most you could ever get from, well, at least currently, I guess, at this exact moment in time, the most you can get from doing a battle of 5 is 20 points. But even in the highest possible league, you will get 25 points for doing 5 battles. So you will actually break even and get literally 0 silver marks if you were to use this on one of the battles. I guess if there was a week where it was really, really viable to farm it with Curse, you could do that because you focus more on VP than you do on the currency. But otherwise, unless you're in the highest league doing that, just to farm VP a little bit quicker, either to make leaderboard or whatever else you're trying to do, I don't see any reason why you would use any of these at this price relative to how many you get. They are completely pointless. Don't accidentally misclick on this tab. Next, we have the pets. Pretty much the whole thing that you use these things on. There will be 4 pets every single week, 2 for silver and 2 for gold. I do not know if the gold pets can rotate onto silver and vice versa. If this is the case, you should only ever buy the pets that are for silver. For example, I already got the hawk earlier, and next we'll end up getting this little guy, hopefully before the end of the week. And then next week, there'll be a different 2 here. And I'm not sure if these can appear here. If so, you should never get the gold ones. If they don't, then I guess you might want to get them for completionist sake. They did say at some point they might add these to the gnome drop table. As it currently stands, you cannot find PvP pets in the gnome drop table. They are only from the PvP shop, meaning you'll need silver marks for these and maybe gold marks for these. We don't quite know yet if they will rotate onto the normal ones. But if we do eventually get confirmation, like this guy being available for silver in like 3 weeks from now, then you should only ever use silver marks to get these. I actually won't even be getting them initially. I'm just kind of hoarding my gold marks just so we can kind of see that over the next couple weeks going into next year. Because if all of these just rotate onto silver eventually, it might take a little bit longer. Just wait till they come to silver. It is substantially easier to get silver marks. They're infinitely farmable by the method I was talking about earlier. Just keep taking whatever one those little orange marks move to and just do whatever battles there, ideally from the outer rings, and work your way in. You can even just completely ignore the middle one that gives you the least amount of points and just simply keep racking them up, do your battles there, and you'd eventually be able to afford them. It is doable to be able to afford both of these in a week. The amount of hours that could take could vary, depending on how much you grind, what you have. But I would say on average, that's around, it's definitely less than 10 hours a week. Though keep in mind, you won't need to do that forever. You just really need 1 copy of each. And I think there's only like 20 of these currently in the game. So that might sound like a bit of time, but it's not that bad. And I believe it's actually lower than 10 hours. I haven't really timed like every single second I've bothered farming PvP so far. But as long as you have the right teams, I'm pretty sure you could almost do it within 5 hours if you really kill them out quickly if you have most of the things within the game. But even if you are a bit slower, it's not too hard to end up getting these pets every single week. And you don't have to. You just wait till they rotate around. Obviously, these will rotate around. Probably give it about a month. We'll see these guys here again or sometime somewhat soon. And that's the main things you would use on. You should never, ever get this orb of minions. The main reason being is that it costs both silver and gold. If this only costed silver, I could see this being actually worthwhile. But the fact that it costs gold as much as a deed book, it is very much not worth it. Even if it was just the gold, it would not be worth it. If it was just the silver, it would. Because there's not currently a place to infinitely sync the silver marks other than talismans, which are, you know, not really worth doing for the most part. But you can end up dumping into silver if we ever made this only silver. With it being gold currently, not worth it. So the only thing you do is just get 1 copy of every pet, and then silvers do nothing, I guess, until they add more things to use them with or rebalance how some of these work. However, one currency that is pretty interesting are the gold ones. You should completely ignore the first 3 they see here. You should never use it on Imperial, on a Curse Rune, or on Dragonite. They are all pointless. However, there are 2 that you should be spending them on, and that is on Deed Books and Shiny Keys. Most notably, probably Deed Books. You could end up getting up to 3 of these per week. However, unless you're spending money on gold marks, it's actually physically impossible in the current state of the game to get even 300 of this per week. However, this is very, very enticing. 3 random color Deed Books. Of course, they are random. However, they are still Deed Books, and they're the main progression for upgrading Kingdom. Of course, if you go to the Kingdom map, no, I do not want that. If you go to the Kingdom map and just click on, like, any Kingdom, and we go to, not that menu, this one right over here. Of course, the main thing they're used for is for leveling up Kingdoms. They take quite a lot. They're very slow to end up accumulating over time, and you need to do them in order to get all these additional upgrades, most notably the extra stats all the way at the end, which also allows you to get to higher star levels, like 30 star into the future, as more and more Kingdoms are starting to reach that point. However, where am I trying to go with this? Train of thought. But anyways, so as far as the premium gold ones, there's only 3 locations to really get them at the moment. You could buy them for money, which comes out to, if you were to keep getting just this offer and ignoring that one, it would come out to $4.70 per Deed Book. That one can be avoided though. You can get 80 for the basically weekly amount that you can end up doing. If you get 6,500 VP every single week, you end up getting 80 in the current state of the game. But there are 2 other ways that you can end up getting them, and they're based on leaderboards. So this leaderboard's a little bit clunky right now because they have a lot of placeholder people, just so the patch would go out nice and clean. But going into future weeks, even as early as potentially next week, you will see like 30 active people likely in the your bracket, rather than just a straight wall of zeros. However, this ends up giving you a bunch of gold marks. We don't know how much, I don't believe currently, how many this will give at the highest possible rank. Emerald rank, I believe, is just halfway through. There's still 5 ranks above. I think it goes Sapphire next and goes all the way up to Diamond or Platinum or something similar. Probably Diamond. But doing so will make these numbers go up. And if you make your top 3 within your category, you will end up getting these gold marks. So essentially, instead of having to compete for the entire global leaderboard that is substantially harder to end up landing on, you can simply just go for the smaller one here. And the smaller one will generally be more obtainable. Getting top 3 might still be a little hard depending on what you're up against on a given week, but a lot more doable than the standard leaderboard. If you end up making the top 7, you end up moving up, which even if you don't get these rewards, is still useful because you're getting more silver marks in the under area. And if you the following week, if you are able to make the top 3, you would get even more gold marks. If you stay in this middle area, you'll simply just stay in your current bracket. And if you're in the lower section, you will end up moving down to the previous tier. One other thing to note is that if you happen to do literally 0 PvP within a given week, let's say you play very actively PvP initially because it's new, you want to try it out, you get like all the new rewards, and then you decide like 2 months ago that you never want to play PvP again. You can do that. You can actually stay in Diamond rank, and as long as you do 0 PvP fights, you should not move down in rank. Keep in mind though that at least in the current state of the game, this could change in the future when they do more PvP updates, but in the current state of the game, Guild War will likely count as PvP. So if you're doing any amount of Guild Wars on a given week, you will go down in rank if you are expecting to, do no PvP fights, as those do count as PvP fights, at least currently. That could change midway through this year when they rework Guild War as well. But as it currently stands, that would count, so you would have to actually do your battles to maintain your rank if you do it. However, if you don't feel like on every other week, you can do simply no battles, and you will maintain whatever rank you are currently at. But if you have even 1 VP point, you will go down a rank. So do be mindful of that. Anyways, the other way that you can end up getting is the standard global leaderboard. It's pretty similar as per usual. This one's, as far as the lower sections, gosh, for whatever reason, you have to scroll some before it lets you scroll. But the lower section's not too hard to end up making. Obviously, if you're trying for first place, you're definitely going to have to put a lot of hours into PvP to end up getting there. For even just participating, you should be able to get whatever this loot is right here. 5, 5, 10, and 2,000 will easily end up getting you. It's currently kind of bugged right now what rank you are if you are not top 100. I'll probably be fixing in the upcoming weeks. But if you do get top 100, you'll get whatever loot is shown, and if you simply just get pretty much any other rank, you'll simply just get a little bit of just reward just for participating, which is just another 5 gold marks and a little bit of silver there. So pretty similar to how the PvP system has kind of already existed, except this is just a little bit of a tweak. Also, I just realized this isn't preferred participation, it's actually top 10,000. The top 10,000 is normally pretty easy to do if you're just actively just doing it a little bit here and there. So not too hard to end up doing. But of course, the higher ranks don't really give you that much more. But if you are looking to get a little bit extra, it can be something that gets added onto it. Aside from that, is there really anything else to mention with PvP other than doing a whole video on teams? Because gosh, is there a ton of teams you're going to need down here. as aside from the middle section where you're allowed to use anything, every single one of these is restricted. So overall, I've been personally enjoying it, just using a ton of different teams. We are going to start seeing stuff other than like filler teams. Like, for example, every single team that we're seeing here is literally just like randomly generated for troops. This will change. It will be populated completely with actual player teams. So, for example, next week, someone who fights me might be up against Writhing Staff with triple Eye of Argus if there's another Orc restriction, or whenever the Orc restriction comes back in like 2 or 3 weeks or however long it'll be, as there's currently like 20-ish of them that can rotate. So when Orc does come back and we see that again, we'll actually see teams like this and, you know, other similar 4 Orc teams like Double Empower, Skulls, and stuff like that. So you won't be up against just random gibberish going forward. It will be actual players' teams. You know, you won't be fighting them in real time, but it will be actual other players' teams. Which, yeah, we're going to see a lot of Eye of Argus versus Eye of Argus, that's for sure. So we'll see how that pans out, which will make them a little bit more difficult in the future. So I do advise farming up PvP a little bit now if you're looking to get certain milestones and other things. Aside from the Vault event, of course, that we have this weekend, so you might want to prioritize that too. But this is one of the better weeks that we're ever going to have to farm all those little side areas. So potentially worth considering. Might even be so next week as well if they haven't fully updated yet, as it might take a couple weeks for all the teams to really get initialized. As at least every single mode would have to have cycled at least once before we really start seeing other players' teams show up there. That's kind of the whole gimmick of the PvP thing. You're just fighting other people's teams, but it's a lot of placeholder stuff, at least initially, just so the patch would come out smoothly. Anyways, I think that's most of the things to really explain with the PvP system there without going really in-depth into teams, which we'll, of course, we'll be doing in a separate video. Let's now go into some of the other things that they ended up adding. So, we ended up getting some new dragons. Only the final one really seems that useful. But we did get 6 new dragons, or technically 7. We got all 6 of these elemental dragons. That's basically what these guys do, is they deal a bunch of damage to all enemies with no boost ratio. Which is noteworthy because the gem dragons do have boost ratio there. It could then convert 5 of whatever color they are into purple dragon gems, which are the ones that destroy downwards. And there's a 10% chance to gain an extra turn, boosted by purple at a slightly better ratio than the other dragons. So they have a slightly higher extra turn chance, but they have less overall damage when they cast. They also gain less magic whenever you take their color, or less to all skills, I mean. However, they do have more durability. Instead of just having 55% score reduction, they have 30% score reduction. However, they have 55% spell reduction, making them kind of pseudo-tank in a sense. Personally, I feel like all 6 of these are very useless compared to their gem dragon counterparts. However, one thing that is not useless, actually 2 things, is after you craft all 6 of those, you will then need to go craft the 3 new weapons. The 3 new weapons are the Solar Winds, the Lunar Tide, and the Decaying Orbit. Both of these, not too useful, though I believe the one that does Doomskull is a little more useful, this little guy. 14 mana cost for convert all purple to Doomskull. However, the one that actually has a lot of use case is this thing over here, the Decaying Orbit. It is a 3 mana, 22 mana cost weapon. And it is the first double convert Doomskull on Hero. I believe there are 2 or 3 other ones of this in the game, but they're not on Hero, they're on Troops. And this converts all reds into cursed brown gems, so the cursed gems are brown. And if you take them, they will curse a random enemy, or if they take it on you, it will curse your team. And then converts all purples to Doomskulls. So purple to Doomskull and red to brown, essentially, but they're cursed brown. And then it also jumbles the enemy team. So they'll all be in a different order, which could be potentially useful, could be potentially not useful, because you're jumbling them, but if you're expecting to kill whatever their first slot is with your skull damage, you might not be. It might be a different first slot, so a little bit clunky in that regard, but overall the amount of power that it has is still pretty nice, and I can see this being pretty niche and still finding its way into actual battles. Like, it's niche enough that you would need it, but you wouldn't use it on, like, every single team, but I can definitely see this coming into play. As far as mythic weapons, not the greatest, but definitely has a use case. And then, of course, we have the main gimmick. After you craft that weapon, you will get the thing that is actually most useful, and that is Stellarix. So as far as Stellarix is concerned, it is really good. It's basically Diamantina, but loopier, but less damage. So it has potential to do more damage, but it initially has a lower single hit. So Diamantina still reigns supreme as the highest full AoE troop in the game. If you're just looking for a cast that does maximum amount of damage in one single cast, Diamantina is still the way to go, so it is still going to be used in a ton of modes. However, this thing combines a very high amount of AoE damage, kind of like Truffle but higher, with extra turn potential. So it creates 3 elemental stars and 3 umbral stars every single one of its turns. So that alone can also land an extra turn But on top of that, there's a 10% chance to gain an extra turn boosted by skulls at a 4x ratio. So if there are 10 skulls on the board, it'll end up having a 50% chance to extra turn on top of whatever turn chance you'll have from the 3 stars that you'll create onto the board, which is kind of hard to math out because that could be any number depending on where everything is on the board. However, you're generally speaking, I would say, in the combination of these two, probably do have about a 50% chance to extra turn, possibly higher depending on the current board state, especially if there are things like hourglass gems on the board, because elemental stars and umbral stars destroy in a X and plus respectively, and if there is a hourglass within your plus or X, you will end up getting that extra turn automatically, which brings this extra turn chance up to like upwards of 90% in those circumstances if you're using something like Daughter of Time to make him a bit more consistent. So has a lot of potential moving forward. It's basically going to be like Truffle Infinite Loop, but quicker, but slower, but less consistent, but more damage. I don't know. It's a weird in-between that definitely has potential. I definitely won't be using it as much as Diamantina, but it definitely has its use cases, particularly with Daughter of Time. As far as its traits, it has very similar. It has the 30% score reduction with 55% spell reduction, making it really tanky. It's actually one of the tankiest troops relative to how high its damage is, potentially even the highest. Tina 9000 is pretty high up there in like its protection to damage ratio, having a armor gain, a true damage, high damage output with like 50% spell reduction. But this has even more spell reduction while also having score reduction, so but has no way to gain durability other than its final trait, which isn't really much. 1 to all stats whenever you take skull, adds up over time, but this is once again smaller than what Diamantina does. It's still the same trigger, but it does less every single time. His main gimmick is almost entirely the fact that his extra turn chance is really, really good compared to Diamantina and similar alternatives that have like percent chance. Even compared to Beatrix, so often even have a higher extra turn chance than Beatrix if you have hourglass gems on the board. So has a lot of potential, and personally, probably one of my favorite things I've been enjoying from the patch. A lot of different things you can end up doing with it. And now, lastly, we have ourselves a new effect. So we ended up getting the Terror effect being added to the game. And with that, it basically does 2 things. Let me go to PvP. I think I have one on Central Spire right now, so might as well do a fight here. So as far as, an Infinite Loop Beatrix. You know what, can I go do something a little tamer? Maybe not that tame. Can we get it in between? Yeah, that's fine. But anyways, oh wait, I'm not using Essence of Evil anymore. I switched it over to Wand. Okay, fine, I'll switch it back to Essence. Let's see, not you, that one. There we go. I'm not even gonna bother changing the banner. Actually, I probably should. I need green. It's gonna take forever to get green in that setup. Let's see. That's not banners. Banner. Give me a green banner. Give me green, yellow. Doesn't really matter what the second color is. Sure, just take that. Doesn't really matter right now. All right. Let's go get this thing some mana real quick. So, Terror. There are only a few ways to currently apply Terror. The new kingdom that we're supposed to get did get delayed. It was supposed to be next week. I believe it's been delayed to January 1st. So we do have to wait a while until we have a 100% way to apply Terror and only Terror. However, there are alternative ways of currently applying Terror. The main one being Essence of Evil. So anything that can do every status effect in the game, or even just random status effects, so it would be a lot more inconsistent, can now apply Terror, as it's been added to the game fully, even though the kingdom itself has not quite been added. So we get to see some Stellar Exis here. Oh wait, I just did too easy of a fight that I just one-shotted. Let me do a mid-range. Wait. I underestimated his power. Wait. What is that? Standard Divine Team, just with an Orpheus. Lust build is annoying, but he also has Essence of Evil. So one of us is going to get it down. All right, let's deal with those Lusts first, though. But let's go and get this thing rolling. Oh, come on. Why aren't you somewhere where I can Leprechaun you? Unfortunate. Let's get a little bit of mana going, get our Essence of Evil so we can go apply to Terror. He'll deny every green, which is the exact opposite of what I need right now. This team also doesn't necessarily have a direct counter to freeze. This is the whole reason why we're running Wand earlier, as that does give us a counter to freeze. I'm just going to take Hourglass Gems until I can see a green next to a green. Is that too much to ask for? Come on, give us some green off of that. There we go. Thank you. All right, so Essence of Evil. New best target is now last slot, oddly enough. The reason for this is you can apply Terror, and Terror does the following. It has a... Actually, I might as well apply it, and then we'll go over it. So it has a 10% chance that whoever's in last slot will instantly flee from the fight every single time they have their turn. We can't quite see it there, but if you see that like little purple one in the middle that keeps pulsating, that's the Terror one. And it looks like a little icon right there. You can kind of see it, but it's a little hard with every effect in the entire game over top of it. Not really a convenient way to apply it otherwise. But the Terror... Actually, I can probably see it right here. Let's see, can we see it here? Yeah, we can end up seeing the actual description. So it has a 10% chance if something is in last slot that it will flee from fight. It has a 10% chance that they will end up moving if they're not in last slot, so we'll kind of reshuffle them. And it has the standard cleanse rate. So, you know, 10%, 20%, 30%, though, if the curse 5, 10, so on and so forth. We should any second now end up seeing the effect. We can kind of read through it real quick. Yeah, no, curse. Come on, next one. Next one, we're almost there. We're almost there. There it is, terror. A 10% chance to move down by 1. If they are in the final spot, there's 10% chance they'll run away from each turn. So that's what it does. 10% chance that they will run away if they're in last slot, which is why the best target for Essence of Evil now, if you don't have a better target, is now last slot. As well as if they is targeted on something else, let's say we did it on Lust, it'll be a 10% chance that they would move down, which means you could still get value from using on first or second slot if it's something that's really good with skulls. Like, let's say there's a Lord of Slaughter in second slot. That's probably a pretty good target to go use on an Essence of Evil on. It already was, even before the Terror, but even more so now, as it would move him further to the back, making him a bit more useless for longer. So you could do stuff like that with it. It'll be interesting to see how the mechanic pans out when we have actual dedicated troops for it, as the only real viable way is pretty much Essence of Evil right now. There are a few others, but they're pretty inconsistent relative to Essence of Evil. So, yeah, there's that. It's not really a mechanic we'll have till January 1st, though it does technically exist if you want to utilize it off Essence of Evil, random effects, or other similar things. But just another thing that can kill. And it does give things that apply all status effects simultaneously more lethality. Because if you do it on their last slot, there's now a 10% chance they'll die to Deathmark, a 10% chance they'll flee away, and a 15% chance they troll you and become a beast off of Lycanthropy. So that is what? It would be additive, so it would be, or multiplicit, so it'd be like a 20-something% chance? Like a 22 point something? I want to say around there. I forget what the exact math would come out to that. But it's almost like a 1 in 4 chance now if you Essence of Evil their last slot per turn that they will die, or become Lycanthroped, which honestly is not that bad. Obviously, Essence of Evil is already pretty good, and I would say it's a buff to everything that does do random status effects. I would say Lycanthropy was overall a nerf, but that's definitely a buff. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out in the future, especially once we have actual proper dedicated troops for the mechanic, things that boost ratio from the mechanic, stuff like that, all of which does not currently exist until we get the New Kingdom and future stuff added to the game. But anyways, guys, I think that's pretty much the rundown for everything in version... Oh, yeah, you can also use your talismans here. You can ignore that. That's a feature that exists that doesn't exist. But that's pretty much everything. I will be posting the full changelog in the description below if you do want to read for yourself. But that is essentially version 7.3. If you still have any other questions, or I didn't explain anything fully, as I did kind of go over the place a little bit here and there. But if you have any other questions, feel free to leave in the comment section below, as we probably know the answer, or the community or someone else in the comment section will probably know the answer, if we happen to not. But some of the info we will need over time, as far as like how some of these mechanics will ultimately end up working. But we'll find out over the next few weeks, and might cover another recap video. Just got to go in over, like, once we get to like max rank and stuff like that. Just kind of going over our overall experience, just like kind of like tips and stuff here and there. And we will start going over teams for these every single week. I'm still not sure exactly how I'll be doing it, but hopefully later today or tomorrow we'll have a full teams video going over a bunch of teams for all of the various battles. Obviously, we have quite a few of them here. Obviously, the Central Spire is anything, but the next ring is going to be pure color teams. And while you could just copy-paste your Guild War team, it wouldn't be as optimal compared to, especially going into next week, compared to what you would actually run here. This week is perfectly fine if you do that, though going into next week, you'll probably need to revamp a little bit more than that once we're up against like actual player teams for some of these. And Outer Ring, pretty similar, except you're a lot more restricted in the Outer Ring. It's one of the reasons why it gives you the most amount of points, as some it doesn't really matter too much, like you literally have infinite loop off of Strix, whereas some other ones you actually have to build like an actual coherent team, like Giant and Stormheim, particularly Giant, you have to build a pretty coherent team to actually end up making that work. Whereas for the other sections, you can kind of just cheese it a bit, and that can vary from week to week as far as how easy or hard a given section is. Like, obviously, Divine has far more options than something like Orc, where Orc strategy is very straightforward, scold them to death, whereas Divine has a plethora of strategies, everything from skull spam, infinite loop, to chip damage, to AoE, to pretty much any strategy you could possibly want. Which is quite a bit of a difference between some of these categories as far as what you can and cannot end up ultimately doing. But anyways, guys, that's the recap for now. Full changelog in the description below, and I will catch you guys later, hopefully with a Teams video very soon, going over each one of these sections. Bye, everyone, and have a wonderful weekend, and a wonderful Vault weekend. Goodbye, everyone.